So Greg is saying the same person. She's the one who had a really rough divorce, and
Okay.
for some, so that's been settled. She's doing great until the ex and the new spouse are back in town, and now she's finding it hard to function. Maybe projections. I'm not sure,
Like,
but
do you have a little bit more detail? Like, what's going on? Like, she's having hard time, like
yeah,
working.
she's having a hard time concentrating. Um, like for example, she paid me twice and two different times. She didn't
Are
really
they
owe me
like,
anything.
are they like
Uh,
in her neighborhood, or like what's
a couple
triggering it?
towns away. So I think she's getting triggered that they're here in Washington.
Hmm.
She's all over the place, she told me, and she's like probably rattled. And I'm thinking maybe there's some projections there, or her body,
Yeah.
her physical body's just reacting to them being because of the
Yeah.
proximity.
I would give her a galbanum. Like, I'd have her inhale galbanum. I'd put galbanum on her wrists. If she could take a few drops of galbanum, and then probably the inhalation of either vetiver or ruscus.
Okay.
And that you might even want to do in a roller ball so she can inhale it, but also rub it on her arms and legs, like on the joints. And I think that combination could help her. Yeah.
Okay.
Like the vetiver will help get her like kind of a bit more in her body. And yeah,
Okay. Roller
the,
ball.
the galbanum will just, it would just help her deal with the pain of the situation.
She said she's very angry, so
Yeah.
I told her about the Lang Lang body tonic.
Ling Ling could help, but anger, a lot of times Melissa is the go-to thing
Yeah, I
for,
told her
if you're
about
not
that.
going to do any of the, I mean, chamomile could help, but like Melissa, like when you're really in the middle of being angry, Melissa's
Mm-hmm.
a godsend. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I sent her that link.
But like I would say, it's a lot more painful for her than she realizes.
Haha. Yes.
You know what I mean? It's
Yep.
honestly, I don't think they're thinking about her at all. Like,
It's
they're
her.
going on with their lives, and I think even that bothers her. It's kind of weird sometimes. Sometimes people like will have a situation like that and say the couple's really grinding on them and saying things to them. That's upsetting. But sometimes the complete opposite, where they just act like that person's not even in existence anymore, that can be
Yeah.
upsetting, but in a different way. It's
God.
almost like, I wasn't even apart enough to get upset about or angry about, or you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's it's hurtful in a different way,
Right.
you know.
Yep.
I there's anger, but like deeper, there's some um there's just some deep hurt feelings.
Yes.
As it kind of unwinds and calms down a little bit. Like right
Mm-hmm.
now, addressing trauma, even just with helichrysum, um, it might help a little bit, but I would say do the things we're talking about with the galbanum and the ruscus or the vetiver, just to ground her a little bit and ease some of the pain. And if sometimes the anger just passes, but the Melissa can help calm down the anger. And the thing with Melissa is it helps to to slow down the generation of lower emotions. And so it doesn't really resolve it, it just kind of stops it. But when everything kind of calms down and the anger kind of quiets down, there's probably going to be a period where she realizes I'm more hurt than I realized.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, you could keep it really simple with that. Like you could just do some like helichrysm, have her inhale on the heart, have her inhale it into the spine, have her
Mhm.
think of the relationship and that person and inhale it. I mean, that should help because the helichrysm will help heal the trauma of the situation, but it will help her to move past it. And
Mhm.
you know, sometimes people, I'm not saying this like in a judgy way. I'm saying this like we all do this, like we all do some form of
Mhm.
this. But it's almost like we want some sort of reaction from the other person. We want some sort of validation. We want to see that, you know, even though they've moved on, we were important to you enough at one point in
Right.
our lives that you're upset. And when that
Yeah.
doesn't happen, it feels like doubly bad. Like it's
Right.
just like, all that happened and you don't care. Like, you know what I mean?
You're
Like,
not suffering. Let
right,
yeah.
exactly. And you
Yeah.
know, we can sit and look at it like an outside observer, but I mean, I've been in that. I've totally been in that. And at the moment, I don't really see it. And then I sit and think, what am I really upset about? And as I sit and I kind of go down the rabbit hole, I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
they did those things and they just don't care. Like,
Right.
it's like they were dismissive that I'm an even a person or that I have feelings or, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I would say when somebody experiences this, they can be very tender for a while. Like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like they're just any little thing can like just hurt 10 times worse than it does. And it's just because like if you have like a wound in your arm where you know somebody hit you and it broke open and everything, that area is tender for a little while and then it kind of goes away. Same thing happens in the emotional body. You know, it's just they're a little tender for a little bit and they pass, but it usually passes when they start having some positive experiences like, you know, past that. Like, you know, oh, they have some friends that are very nurturing, or more importantly, maybe another partner that even if they don't get married, that they start dating and the person really likes them or something like that. It becomes easy to let all that go. But in the
Right.
moment, it's just tender for a little while.
Right.
The vetiver, it's grounding. The Melissa strengthens the heart. Like the Melissa, it calms down the emotions, it calms down the anger, and you could say that the Melissa helps a person's heart be able to take a punch. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like strengthening where something happens and you just are able to go, you know, yeah, that hurts, but you know, move on, right?
Right.
And the helichrysm helps move past that. But the vetiver is very interesting. You know, it brings about like a peace of mind, but it's almost like it calms down certain processes in the logical mind that just keeps you from going to those dark places. You know what I mean? It's just like you just keep kind of relaxing into it, and it doesn't necessarily take the pain away, but it's just like, yeah, this sucks, but it'll pass. Where sometimes we don't have quite the perspective that it's going to pass. You know, sometimes it just feels like it's just always going to be this way. And the vetiver, you know, it's in India, it's known as the oil of tranquility. And part of that is it has a balancing effect between the logical mind and the intuitive mind. And whenever you start bringing in the intuitive mind, it becomes easier to let go of something. You know, the helichrysum will help let go of something to a certain extent. The galbanum will help let go of something to a certain extent. The Melissa will kind of put them in a place where, like, yeah, did it really matter as much as I thought? You know, everything will kind of do it. They're all hitting like different pieces of this. And you know, sometimes you kind of have to tailor like the approach depending on what they're going through. But these particular things for this kind of situation are pretty solid. You know, it's a real solid way to go through and treat this. And the reason to put them on the arms is if the arms have like this certain kind of like agitation in them, like they need to be calmed down way more than we realize, the arms and the legs. Because if you remember, they're part of the basic chakra, and if they're agitated, it becomes harder and harder for the heart to expand. You know, it's harder to transmute lower emotions. It becomes harder to feel a sense of peace. It becomes harder to feel a sense of well-being because you're a little bit like checked out, and you're a little bit it's like you're on guard. You know what I mean? Like you're on guard, and what you're
Mhm.
addressing by treating the arms and legs is like a reaction to the difficulty or the conditioning that's happening. You know, a lot of times things happen and we have this kind of automatic response and automatic behavior that we talked about. And then it goes up and it gets processed, and, you know, certain things happen. And then at some point, there's like an emotional and mental component. And then the expression of what do I do about this? Do I run? Do I defend myself? Do I not take action? Do I, you know, whatever, kind of manifests in the arms and legs. You know, it starts to manifest in the voluntary part of the nervous system. And the emotional upset or the mental upset, a lot of times you see that in the arms and the legs. And so if you clean that up, it becomes easier just to and let it go.
Mhm.
And, you know, like we were talking about, I think it was on the weekend, that like if you take a little baby and you put some lavender in your hand, which is very soothing to a baby, and you rub it on their chest and abdomen, it actually kind of is agitating to them. But if you take that same lavender and a little bit of lotion and you rub their arms and legs, and then you go touch their chest and their abdomen, they're just like a rag, you know, like a wet rag. They're just limp and relaxed. And it's because when you relax the arms and legs, it allows the torso to drop its defense mechanism, and it relaxes some of the smooth muscle in the gut. And if you think of like what happens when there's anxiety or something like that, a lot of it is tension in the gut, tension in the gut, tension in the respiratory tract. And so part of it is tied to these mechanisms. And you know, I talk about it, but I don't go into like boring detail about it, or at least I try not to be boring about it. But like,
Not boring.
but there's a lot more going on in the arms and legs than what we've even talked about. And so this idea of inhaling the vetiver and rubbing the vetiver on the arms and the legs,
Mhm.
it has a much bigger impact than we think. And you know, in the West, we think so much of like a symptom, like how do you treat this, when really you want to see like, okay, what's happening with the person? How are they getting to the place that they're getting? And how can we go through and look at their mechanisms and calm certain things down so that they just don't go there anymore? You know, it's really more about that than trying to alleviate the symptom of when they hit that spot. And so it's a lot like playing pool where you're setting up shots to do it. And you know, sometimes it works and sometimes you do need to do adjustments, but those things that we talked about are really solid when somebody is hurt and tender, especially from a broken relationship or some devastating thing that happened to them where they are experiencing loss. Not so much about the grief part, but just what do I do now? Like where do I go from now? Because a lot of times, you know, uh I don't know. We're going down a rabbit hole, but apparently I'm wanting to go down a rabbit.
Let's do that.
But like you look at somebody, you see this a little bit more in men than in women, but like when they're a widower and you know they really love their partner, right? And then their partner passes, you can see it in their eyes. Like time can go by, everything's fine, they have a good attitude, you know, they're moving on with things, but it's like there's this piece in them that they just don't know what to do. Like they don't like my life was like this and now it's not. You know, they look a little like kind of lost almost. And women tend to be able to pull that to get together a little bit better, but it could happen to any of us, you know, at any point when there's some big like loss or, you know, a relationship breaks up and it's been there for a while. You know, it's not just tender, it's just you almost just don't know what to do for a little bit. And you just got to nurse them through that piece because life will happen. You know, that's the thing. Life will happen. Like if you can keep them like from tail spinning too much, eventually somebody's going to like them. Something's going to come along. They're going to get some opportunity. You know, they're going to have a group of people that they start interacting with. You know, something will happen, but you just got to get them through that rough patch. And this person sounds like you got to just get them through that rough patch. Yeah.
Thank you, Greg. So
Does
with
that help? Like, I mean,
yeah, very much.
okay.
So between galbanum and helichrysum,
I do a helichrysum like probably a couple months from now, like a month or two down the line.
okay, so that's step 2.
Galbanum, Ruscus or vetiver, and you know, if the anger doesn't calm down, I mean, I would do Melissa, and I would take it internally if she's up for it. If not, just inhale it all through the day, especially when she starts to have bouts of anger.
Like 4 to 5 drops of Melissa initially.
She could probably get away with 2 or 3.
2 to 3.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm
If
taking
for
that
some
too.
reason, if for some reason, like she needs a little something more or something extra, let me know and we can talk through it. But that
Okay.
should bring her a lot of comfort and a lot of relief.
Yeah.